Just a fall on the way to the shopping mall, and I woke up in a forest somehow. All around me were thick trees that made me feel incredibly scared and helpless. That's when I heard a low wolf howl. I knew these wolves were closing in on me. I tried to run away, but my legs seemed to be too bound up in fear to move. As a modern young man, I don't want to die young so early. After all, I don't even have a boyfriend yet. I was simply depressed. Just a fall on the way to shopping. Why was I in such a hellish place? There was no time to think about it. The wolves behind me were getting closer and closer, and all I could do was run as hard as I could. I don't know how long I had been running like this. I was already exhausted, but the wolves were still chasing me. After stumbling along the way, I finally ran into the forest, and I don't know if the wolves are still chasing me. I stopped slowly with a big gasp. I held my hand on a tree and was so tired I couldn't straighten up. I couldn't run anymore. Just then I suddenly heard movement behind me, and I jerked round, and all of a sudden I almost cried with fear. Seeing this, the wolves also slowed down their pace, hissing lowly and approaching me step by step. Where have I ever seen a wolf in all my life? At this point, I instantly sat on the ground in fear, but the hungry wolf didn't understand the human language, showing its mouth full of fangs and flinging saliva. It pounced at me. Desperate, I closed my eyes tightly and shouted, "Help!" only to hear a bang. I'm already dead. I'm still young. I'm not married. I'm not in love. Am I going to die here? How come there's no pain at all? I slowly opened my eyes. What is this? It's not going to eat me too, is it? I saw before me a magnificent cheetah standing there, with a vicious wolf in its paws, and a streak of blood at its side, and the vicious wolf that had just pounced on him was already dead, and was now lying motionless on the ground. The rest of the vicious wolves, seeing such a scene, were also frightened to the point of trembling, and their mouths kept barking. The leopard shouted viciously towards the wolves, looking like it was deterring the hungry wolves, with the panther revealing its own sharp claws. The pack of wolves immediately ran away in disarray. The leopard turned around, a brilliant light shining around it, only to hear it walk slowly towards me. I wondered if the leopard had saved me. Is this a dream? I've heard of dolphins saving people, but not leopards. The leopard was seen transforming into its human form, with big golden eyes, 2 cute ears, and a sharp tooth showing. I covered my open mouth with my hand in amazement at this point. Is this a big change, or is it completely naked? The man braced his hands on the ground and slowly approached me, and I was so scared that strands of my hair trembled. The man's heart suddenly thumped so hard. So beautiful. How could there be such a beautiful female? I looked at the man turned from a leopard in front of me, and was also in a deep daze. What's going on here? Suddenly the man came up to my chest and kept sniffing me, as if he was enjoying himself. I was very flustered. What are you doing? And then obediently dodged backwards, blushing. Why aren't you wearing any clothes? Who knows that the man actually stood up straight, and his mouth actually said, "What are you afraid of? You are alone anyway." The man's move scared me so much that I instinctively tried to duck, but I realized that my toes had just landed on the ground, and I was in excruciating pain. Am I having a water retrogression lately? How come all the bad luck is coming together? What does this guy want? The man brought his face over and looked like he was about to press it. I hurriedly blocked my face with my hands and said shyly, "I'm fine, thank you for saving me." Seeing me say it was fine, the man said happily, "My name is Parker and I am a leopard male. What race are you?" I blurted out I wasn't. Halfway through the sentence, I hesitated, not knowing what this place was yet. By the way, looking at this humanoid beast in front of me, I was instantly alert. It would be bad if I said the wrong thing and got burned and drowned or something. I covered my mouth and coughed lightly twice. "I'm such a pretty girl. Guess what race I am?" the man said with a serious face. "You are so good looking. I guess it is the Fox clan." Not long after, the man guessed the beast race in turn. In just a few moments I learned that the Beast clan includes the Peacock clan, the Mermaid clan, the Tiger clan, the Bear clan, the Leopard clan, the Eagle clan, the Snake clan, and the Ape clan. I was an ape when I heard that humans evolved from apes, and apes should be the least likely to wear out their welcome. The man asked me again why I was alone in the forest, and I had to lie and say I got separated from my people. Then the man patted my head and said, "I picked you up. You'll be mine from now on." At this time my heart is simply chaotic. What kind of world is this? Is it possible to take me as a slave? Then the man stood up and said, "I'll take you back to the tribe. Come with me." And the man transformed into a gaunt panther again. I only saw the leopard instantly burrow through my legs with an arrow step, directly carrying me on its back. I was surprised. Then my cheeks reddened with shame. "Why are you like this? How could you get under my skirt?" And the leopard turned round and scared me so much that I curled up my legs It's better to be careful with wild animals. I saw the leopard carrying me in one direction at a fast pace, and so one person and one leopard ran wild through the forest. I sensed that the leopard should bear me no ill will, and I let my guard down for a while. I saw the man reach out and stroke my flushed cheeks, and I asked fearfully, "What do you want?" The man suddenly lifted my head in both hands and said, "You look so pretty," then snapped a hand and smeared both my cheeks with mud. I was on fire, and the man explained that it prevents you from being stolen by the horny males. I went to the river and looked at my reflection in the clear water. Then I was ready to pick up the water with my hands to clean the mud from my face. Suddenly, the figure of a man appeared in the water. "If you dare to wash, I'll scratch your face and make you look bad forever." I was scared to death to hear him say such vicious things. After all, it was a beast not likely to actually do it. I hurriedly turned around and sold a cute. "Not to wash it, just do not wash it," the man then said. "Well then, let's go." At this point I was calculating in my mind to wait until I got to the tribe and find an early opportunity to get rid of this dangerous man. Immediately after that, we came to a place that was kind of like a zoo, with other respective animals everywhere. I only saw that those orcs also stood with 2 ears, and all of them had pretty faces. Only the tattoos on these faces were different. That said, are all orcs this good looking? I've heard of certain tribes of savages that use paint on their faces to indicate status and dignity. I thought back to the fact that Parker seemed to have more tattoos on his face than any of them, and wondered if that meant he was high up in the pecking order. This group of orcs saw me and started tasting me. "So dirty, but smells good. I like to see that he's still single. I wonder if he's an adult." Others said, "Parker, where did you get this female?" My hands tightened nervously and I whispered, "What are they going to do?" "Parker, are they going to take me away from me?" Only Parker roared towards the crowd. It was very impressive and looked furious. The orcs who had just been gossiping were also frightened, and their legs involuntarily trembled as they stepped backward. I just saw me standing on Puck in front of a group of male orcs that seemed very interested in me. Suddenly a voice came from the crowd. "Get out of the way, get out of the way." I was instantly delighted. It was a woman's voice, only to see the crowd instantly boiling. The male orc shouting, "Look at you, Dora, and the girls. She's so beautiful." I thought to myself, great, there are actually women here. I guess it will be easy to get along with women. Only 3 women appeared in front of them, and the leader said, "Parker, where did you get that? Dirty females." I covered my mouth in surprise when I saw these 3 women. Was this really the same race? The difference between men and women is too big. Right. Upon closer inspection, those 3 women looked like they have pure noses and squinty eyes. No wonder Puck said I looked good. It really hurts that group of handsome male orcs. Puck simmered and growled and began to assert his sovereignty. I picked him up. He's my female alone. Don't even think about hitting on him. Parker finished and turned to pack me away, even as I was being very polite, not forgetting to wave bye-bye to the crowd. The woman who had just been in charge was very angry at this point and shouted towards Parker, "Bastard, what's wrong with you?" Then he said arrogantly, "I don't believe that with my beauty. I can't compare to that dirty female." I don't know how long it took, but Parker and I finally arrived at a thatched cottage on the edge of the cliff, and this was Parker's home. Inside the house, Parker finally draped a piece of animal skin. "Female, you are hungry. I grill meat for you. What flavor do you like?" There was a 4-horned animal roasting on the fire by the campfire. I asked what flavors were available. Parker replied, "Boiled firewood and spiced wood firewood." I like the flavors of both. I looked at Parker in shock. "Is the flavor of the food all down to the wood you burn?" I opened my mouth and said, "Whatever, I'll eat after you. Do you have any rice here?" Hearing me ask if there was any rice, Parker's face suddenly changed. "Don't even think about it. Just because you females love rice. How many males died of exhaustion because of farming? I'll go get you whatever you're eating. But rice is out of the question, and I hate those dainty females. Am I nuts? Is farming so dangerous? How can it kill a strong orc? If you don't want to eat it, then don't eat it. Why are you being so mean?" At that, Parker turned gentle again and stroked my head and said, "That's a good boy." I grunted and turned my head away from him, and a sudden burst of pain hit me and I cringed as Parker rushed to ask, "What's wrong?" The anger hasn't gone away yet. Parker knelt down and picked up my ankle and said heartily, "You're hurt. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Then only Parker gently propped her ankle up and looked down. "Not protecting you. I'm sorry." In a flash, Parker had carried me to a thatched hut and he knocked hard on the door. "Harvey, are you there?" Parker shouted anxiously into the house. Suddenly the door was pushed open from the inside, followed by a voice. "The door is going to break down with you knocking on it." A blonde-haired, blue-eyed man poked his head out. "What is it?" I was in so much pain that I was on the verge of crying, and I looked at the man who opened the door with tears in my eyes, and it was just so touching. Suddenly, a piece of mud somehow fell off my face. The man fixed his eyes on it, and the female was too beautiful to remove the mud. Then rushing to open the door, he said to Parker, "This female is hurt. Carry her in." Then the man holds up the thinking little head and asks, "Is that face hurt? Stung by a bee? So you put mud on her?" Parker said with a breathless, helpless look on his face, "No, it's her ankle that's sprained. Her face is fine." The man took my ankle in both hands and examined it closely, and I was about to bawl uncontrollably at the pain that brought tears to my eyes. Parker was busy holding up my face, reassuring me not to worry. Harvey had learned his healing arts in the city of 10,000 beasts, so bear with it and I'll be fine in no time. Harvey's old face flushed with shame at the intimate gesture between the two of us, and he pretended to cough. Harvey looked at my socks and asked, "Can this come off? I'm going to rub your feet to dissolve the bruises." I blushed and said, "Sure," and the socks came off a little, revealing my swollen, reddened ankles. Harvey looked at my feet in shock, only to see Harvey's eyes widen in shock and his mouth fall open. Harvey's reaction freaked me out. "Oh crap, did the feet show?" My eyes widened nervously. Beads of sweat were about to roll down my fringes. "Don't orc feet look like this?" The next second, but I saw Harvey holding my feet with both hands, exclaiming, "These feet are so beautiful. I didn't think that this orc was actually obsessed with my feet." I saw Harvey take my feet and examine them up and down with a look of love. "This piss puck off." He clenched his fists and growled, "Stop looking and heal her." Harvey hurriedly turned around and said, "Excuse me," then looked in a basket for something. I was still wondering what kind of medicine the orc would use when I just saw Harvey slowly take out a piece of ginger. I asked with great curiosity, "Are you going to take this for my feet?" I wondered in my mind when seasoning could cure a disease. Harvey looked at me very surprised. He didn't expect me to not recognize this and be very curious about it. Seeing this, Harvey fancifully introduced, "This is called the yellow stem. Can drive away the cold and blood. With this foot rubbing better faster." Listening to Harvey's professional introduction, Parker suddenly lost all his temper and returned a very depressed hoe. I came in modern times and looked at the two orcs in a serious mood and covered my mouth to snicker. "Clearly ginger." Harvey carefully rubbed my injured ankle with ginger, and as a modern man it was the first time I had ever rubbed my foot with ginger. At this time, the sight of the Parker quit, suddenly jealous. "You are not allowed to touch the feet of my female, let me." Harvey looked up at Parker. "You can get it. What if you hurt the female again?" And Harvey was so good, he made me cry. It was indescribable. Looking at my enjoyable little expression, Parker's jealousy instantly spilled over. Biting his lip in great resentment, he angrily reached forward and pushed Harvey away as hard as he could, then gently set me down so I was sitting on the bed, only to hear Parker confidently say, "So simple, I already know how to let me, my female, no one else is allowed to touch." Parker gazed fondly at me in front of him, a scene that caused Harvey, who was watching from the sidelines, to have a cloud around him. Harvey crosses his arms provocatively and says to Parker, with such clumsy hands, "Be careful how you treat Mercy," and the two of them lock eyes. Instantly on fire, Parker asked gently, "Does this first hurt?" This damned tenderness makes me smile and bend my eyebrows. "It doesn't hurt. You can go a little heavier." In the next moment, Parker asked playfully, "So who's a little more skilled, me or Harvey?" Parker didn't have the heart to ask Harvey if there was anything else he wanted to do. Harvey says he'll see how it goes tomorrow and rub her when he can. While the two of them were talking, I actually found something good. Here you don't use seasoning to eat, but you use it to make medicine. Looking at the bowl of seasonings, I was filled with joy, worrying about the lack of flavor of the food over here. With these things can finally improve. Then I twinkled my big eyes. "That Harvey, where can I find those herbs?" Looking at my churlish gaze, Harvey was instantly taken down and sheepishly scratched his head and said, "Take it if you want it." Suddenly a jealous Parker appeared and angrily pushed Harvey and I, who were chatting away, in between us. Then shielding me behind him, he pompously told Harvey that my females don't want what you give them. "I'll pay for your food." Then coming up to Harvey's eyes, he said solemnly, and also that she had said she only wanted me as a mate. Harvey suddenly had a sad look in his eyes and didn't know what he was thinking, but just stared straight at me. I looked at Harvey and thought to myself, does this Harvey have eyes for me too? The feelings in this world are really simple and rough. I then didn't hesitate to just ask for some star anise, cinnamon, garlic, chili, and spices. Harvey took the leaves and wrapped them around him, while instructing that the other herbs were not dangerous. He picked up a chili and continued, "This red one is called a red clip. You must be careful. Don't touch it with your hands, let alone get it in your eyes. It will be very painful. I'm not going to be able to take it in the face of a blunt, strong and dominant orc attack." I thank Harvey for his kind words. He was about to go and take the packet of spices when suddenly a hand reached out and snatched it from Harvey's hand, only to see Parker say with concern, "I'll take it, don't you be afraid." Looking at Parker, who cared so much about himself, I smiled and arched my eyebrows and said sweetly, "Yes, let's go back then." Suddenly Parker leaned over and scooped me up in one hand, and a wave of shyness washed over me. I could already walk on my own. On his way out, Parker turned back to Harvey and said, "Thanks for today, but don't you dare hit on my females." Harvey looked speechless, waved his hand and said, "Got it, won't hit on your females. Get out of here." Then Parker looked down at me and said fondly, "Female, you are mine and mine alone." Parker carried me all the way back to the house in no time, and all the way Parker was even more careful with me. Parker squatted down and put a hand on my shoulder and asked gently, "Female, tossing and turning for so long, you must be hungry, right?" Then only Parker, immediately afterwards, tore a roasted leg from the fire rack and handed it to me. I took a small piece and put it in my mouth and ate it. Parker asked eagerly from the sidelines if it smelled good. "It's the sin of folk." Then he continued gently, "Next time I'll roast the wood-flavored one for you to try. The meat is more fatty when roasted." But in my mind I was thinking that the meat was dry and had no flavor at all. So how could it still eat all the flavors? Suddenly I thought of the seasonings I brought back from Harvey's, and I excitedly told Parker that it would be delicious to use these crushed up and sprinkled on the roast later. However, Parker said it was medicine not to be taken. I had to blink my big twinkling eyes again and try it, trust me. Looking at the churlish me in front of me, the little lord's ears couldn't stop twitching, only to see Parker wiping his mouth with his hand being said, "Well then, try it." I had a hard time convincing Parker to give it a try, but Parker snatched the meat out of my hand and righteously said, "I'll eat it first to make sure it's okay before I give it to you." Following my instructions, Parker poured the seasoning into a powder, and then sprinkled it on the roast a little at a time. The roast instantly gave off a rich and distinctive aroma, and Parker's eyes instantly lit up. "Oh my God, what is this smell?" He couldn't help tearing off a piece of meat and rushed to stuff it into his mouth without caring if it was hot or not, chewing it continuously. At this point, I was looking forward to it, and I didn't know that the seasoning in this world was different from the modern one. So I hurriedly asked Puck if it was good. Overwhelmed by the seasoned roast, Parker was instantly transformed into the best advocate, clenching his little fist with a satisfied expression. "It was so good." I just saw Parker excitedly telling me that this is the best roast I've ever had. "This flavor is just amazing." Then Parker Saturday down on his knees and let me feed him meat over and over again, and even his little tail wagged happily. After both Parker and I had finished, Parker ended up tenderly licking the condiments off my hand. At this moment, I was blushing. Who can stand to be so provocative? "Why are you so nice to me?" Parker lay contentedly on the ground, stretching his limbs, his stomach bulging with a meal they hadn't had in a long time. Suddenly Parker Saturday up so violently that I turned around and asked, "What are you doing?" Parker turned his face to me and said, "I'm going to go hunt a tiger and pay off Harvey's medical bills, but I can't owe him," only to hear Paka, who had walked to the door, say, "You rest," and leaned down and transformed into a panther and went out the door. I stayed home alone, thinking about the events of the last 2 days. Everything here is amazing, just incredible. But now that I'm here, I've decided that I'd better blend in with this place. Before finding a way back, I fell asleep just thinking about it. I don't know how long it was, but Parker's voice came from outside the house. "I'm back." I Saturday up and rubbed my sleepy eyes. "Back so soon?" At that moment Parker stood in the doorway and said, "I found this thing after hunting. It looks strange. It looks like it's yours." Just now Parker was out hunting and picked up a bag. The very same bag I was carrying on my back when I crossed over. Parker gave the bag back to me and I hugged my lost bag and said thank you happily to Parker. To my surprise, Parker turned away sheepishly. I watched Parker's behavior and was very confused as to why he was reacting so dramatically. However, regardless of that for now, I hummed a little tune as I rummaged through my bag for something. I simply needed it now. It wasn't long before I finally found something that I thought would come in handy. And at this point I was relieved. Who knew that Parker suddenly snatched it up and kept sniffing it with his nose. "Female, what are all these things?" I blushed at Parker's question. How could this leopard be so nasty? How could it take a girl's panties? I snatched it away and said angrily that my name is Turnip White, so don't call me female all the time. Just Turnip. Parker suddenly put his face in front of me. Your name is much better than the name of the female of the city of 10,000 beasts, the 3 strongest races. Faced with Parker's sudden proximity, I blushed a small blush again, then pushed Parker's face away with a strong hand. I couldn't beat Parker's rampage with both hands, so I had to digress. What is the city of beasts? Well, at work, Puck suddenly eyed ahead, recalling the city of beasts, the largest work of our generation. I looked at Parker with a sad look on his face. I had a vague feeling that Parker had something sad in the city of beasts. I raised my hand to try to comfort Parker. Suddenly my hand but was grabbed by Parker. "Turn up, I'll make you a dress all. This dress of yours is too striking." I laughed awkwardly. "You don't understand modern aesthetics," I asked with great skepticism. "You still make clothes?" Parker proudly crossed her little arms. "That's for sure. I made all my own clothes. Get up and I'll measure you." I was even more speechless as I watched Parker's bewildered confidence, but I could only pretend to go along with it for a moment before spinning in a graceful circle in front of Parker. Parker's face suddenly blushed with shame as he looked at me and my stature. Should he get a nosebleed next? However, in the next second, I covered my chest and took a big step back, roaring at Parker, who was calmly saying, "You're my female, so what's wrong with me pinching you?" Looking at Parker as if he deserved it, I cursed very angrily. "Parker, you a rascal." Curious, Parker asked me what a rogue was. "I'm a leopard. Come over here and let me measure you." "Why are you hiding so far away?" I said anxiously with my hands protecting my breasts. "You go away from me. I don't measure up. I don't do clothes anymore." Parker was simply shocked to see me so disgusted with what I had just done, which in his knowledge was perfectly normal. Only Parker rushed up and stroked my head, assuring me that I promised I wouldn't pinch anymore. "Okay." After taking the measurements, Parker picked up a needle and thread and started sewing, and within a few moments it was done, only for Parker to make me an animal skin two-piece suit. I picked it up, looked at the crappy stitching, and awkwardly asked, "Are you showing a centipede?" I looked up at the little kilt around Parker's waist. So that's what his own clothes looked like. So I really couldn't expect anything less from his tailor. Hearing my query, Parker crossed his arms over his chest angrily. "Female, are you disliking the clothes I made?" I don't dare to offend this leopard, and hastened to change my words with a smile. "No, it's quite good and sturdy," Parker said smugly. "Really?" I smiled and agreed. "Well, really good. I'll wear it right after I shower." As soon as he heard that I was going to take a bath, Parker blushed and inwardly began to fantasize about something over and over again. It turned out that this rogue leopard, already fantasizing about my soulful body in the shower, instantly got him horny. Suddenly, Parker clutched his head as if frantic. "No, we can't be allowed to go to the river to bathe. Never let the other males see." Then Parker stared at me with a dominating wallop and said, "You just wash here and I'll get you some water." Looking at Parker's cloudy expression, I was at a loss. Why did he change his face again? But I didn't dare to refute. Not long after, Parker had already filled the barrel with water. "I'm going to take a bath. You go out." I didn't realize that the rogue panther would want to stay and take a bath with me. How could I agree? I only saw me make a move of the dragon's downward slap and pushed Parker directly to the outside of the house. To my surprise, Parker slammed the door from the outside with a bang, and I panicked a little bit. At this point, I hurriedly shouted towards Parker, "What are you doing closing the door so dark?" Parker laughed nervously and said, "So the other males won't see you. Wash up. Don't catch a cold." I took a deep breath and finally made up my mind to take a shower. I couldn't see anything in the darkness of the house anyway, and Parker shouldn't be able to see it either. But I thought wrong. Parker closed a door but left himself a window wall. Parker was out there, and he saw every inch of me. It was like a live feed. I was naked, and every move I made provoked Parker in a way that was simply too tempting to resist. Parker stared hard at me, his eyes dropping out of his head, and he couldn't tell how much saliva he was swallowing. And unbeknownst to me, still enjoying the first hot bath since I got here. Parker hadn't dared to look at it, because he realized the hormones in his body were about to get out of control. He clutched his brain, staying in a mental panic roar that, at that moment, I was taking a bath inside, and suddenly I seemed to sense something, only to feel that someone was staring at me from behind. I turned my head in a hurry to check, and in the heat of the bath water, I was like a blooming pink in a pool of fresh water. Parker blushed as he looked at me in front of him. It was just tempting. Who could stand it? Our eyes met for just a second, and all of a sudden I was so shocked that I lost my voice. There's a pervert caught on the spot. Parker was so weak that he leapt up and hurriedly transformed into a cheetah to escape towards the distance. He raced all the way forward, hoping that his speed would throw off everything, but the image of what he had just seen lingered in his head, only to see Parker dive headfirst into the river, trying to calm himself down and forget the image of what he had just seen. It took an unknown amount of time before Parker stuck his head out of the water, by which time he had transformed back into his human form. As the sun set in a red haze, the handsome leopard seemed to calm down and sigh deeply. But the next second, the beautiful images instantly rushed back into his mind, completely unable to calm down. A calm heart beating once again. On the other hand, I had just come out of the shower, and by now I had changed into the clothes that Parker had made. At this point, I am chastising myself for my stupidity. How could I have forgotten about feline night vision? But it's not Parker's fault for having night vision. I just feel so embarrassed right now. I really want to find a hole in the ground. Just then suddenly, the door opened and Parker tiptoed in from outside and said softly, "I'm home." I turned my head to look at Parker angrily, who scratched his head sheepishly and said, red-faced, "Let's go to bed." I don't know how long it took, but I let out a deep sigh, and then I asked, not in a good mood, where I was going to sleep. Parker tenderly carried me to a straw nest and said curtly, "I made a soft and cozy straw nest, didn't I?" However, at this time I did not want to care about him, turned around and lay down. The grass nest is more comfortable, but not as comfortable as my bed. Suddenly, Parker's hand was on my shoulder. My torso tightened and I was immediately alert. "What are you doing? Let go of me!" I struggled to push Parker away, who lifted my face and soothed me by saying, "Don't worry, you're not in heat yet. I'm not going to mate with you." I blushed a little at the sound of it, and pushed Parker's face away as hard as I could with both hands. And seeing that I couldn't, I turned to run. Parker grabbed me and hugged him tightly from behind, and all of a sudden both of our hearts were beating wildly and uncontrollably. Just then I let out a scream that rang through the night air, as I sensed something was wrong, and Parker resisted the urge to tell me not to dodge. I just heard Parker whispering softly in my ear, "Don't worry, I'll hold back and not mate with you." I was too scared to move. As a modern man, I had never had a boyfriend. Where had I experienced these? At this time, I have tears in my eyes, my heart secretly thinking, and I don't know when I can find the way back. In such a world, as a modern man, I really don't feel safe, and I'm scared every day. Even though Parker doesn't mean me any harm, I can't stand it. If an orc like that is so close to me every day, I don't know how long it took, but I fell asleep thinking about it. And so one man and one panther spent the night in peace. The morning sun poured in and fluttered on the haystacks, and a breeze carried the red petals down. I opened my eyes slightly, thankful that I had escaped unharmed, and Parker opened his eyes at that moment as well. I suddenly felt a tingling at the back of my neck, as if something was licking at me. What I didn't know at that moment was that Parker was behind me, licking my neck with a look of enjoyment on his face. I Saturday up violently and ran my hand over my neck, exasperated. "It hurts. What are you licking me for?" Who knows that Parker was full of smiles and looked at me with affection. "Why are you so tender? One lick and you're red." The next second, I was hot in the eyes again from a naked Puck, and hurriedly told Puck to go get dressed. Parker said going to get some more mud for me to get on my face. I held my chin in my hands. "Don't you just want me to be ugly?" I had ways of doing that. Parker wondered what I could do, yet he didn't realize that as a modern man this was a necessary skill. I just took out an eyeliner pencil and started to keep drawing on my face, according to the small mirror on the airbrush case. In no time at all the oddly ugly freckled makeup was applied, and I asked Parker, "Is this always okay?" And sure enough, Parker bought it, saying with satisfaction that I was so ugly like this, surely no male would like it. Hearing Parker's words, I looked in the mirror again, and I too felt that I simply looked like a village girl now, and it was a wonder anyone liked me. With that, Parker finally put his foot down and was ready to drag me to hang out and see his tribe. It didn't take long for Parker to lead me to their tribe, and that tribe, which was already bustling with activity, got even noisier with my presence. The beasts saw me and started talking. Some said it was so white, some said it had a nice body, but unfortunately it was ugly. I'm still a little excited about looking at all the fresh meat, but I'm so unfamiliar with the world that I can't be bothered to seek help from men. I noticed a few female orcs not far away, and I decided to go ahead and make nice with the females here. I briefly explained to Parker, and then walked over to a group of female orcs to say hello. "Hello, my name is Turnip White. May I join you?" A short-haired female orc was the first to respond. "My name is Eve, and you are the female that Puck picked up." Then Eve introduced me to Eudora, the big female here. I saw Eudora sitting on a male leopard, surrounded by 5 other male orcs. Looking at this scene, I had the immediate feeling of a group of fresh meat being adopted by a rich woman. I still plucked up my courage and politely went up to say hello. Eudora stood with her arms crossed in front of her little boy band, as if to demonstrate to me, and didn't pay any attention to me, just a slight lift of her eyelids. And she thought to herself, where is the use of this female that Parker picked up that is as feet as I am. Then with a smug look on his face, he brushed past me and went straight to Parker. Eudora put her hand on Puck and said with a fawning face, "Puck, I'm in heat, and if you want, I'll stay with you this time and give you a litter of leopard cubs." Upon hearing this, Eudora's little boy band instantly exploded with righteous indignation and fist pumping. Why should they give Parker a baby first? Watching this scene, I couldn't help but snicker. It really hurts the men of this world. Having children still depends on how much their wives like them in the queue. Parker glared at me with fire when he saw that I wasn't jealous at all and was actually so happy. I was also embarrassed to be caught out. Parker pushed Eudora away as soon as he could and rejected her very decisively. "Thank you for the favor, but I already have a partner." Eudora gritted her teeth in anger at the rejection and questioned Puck in irritation. She didn't even have a single beast tattoo on her, and it was just a female that no one wanted. Innocently lying down, I looked bewildered and hugged myself in fear. Eudora's words drew all eyes to me, and the crowd began to murmur. The villainous Eudora proceeds to add fuel to the fire by saying that maybe she's so stinted that she can't have children at all. Hearing Eudora's words, Parker's eyes flashed with a hint of worry. But in the next second, Parker resolutely stood up to defend me. I was kinda surprised to see Parker being so defensive, but it's true that humans don't go into heat. Although Eudora wasn't wrong. In this situation now, Eudora was clearly bullying me, and I was determined to fight back. I walked up and said, "Eudora, I know better than you, but I genuinely feel unworthy of your mates. They love you with all their hearts, and you're thinking about having other people's babies. If I wed them, I'd be a bachelor for the rest of my life." My words in defense of men's rights went to the heart of the men's group, and at this point the crowd of men's group members wished more than anything that I was their female. Eudora saw the reaction of her men and gasped, "Damn it, this one was just here to stir up trouble." I only saw Eudora say furiously, "I don't see who will like you if you can have pups." Suddenly a voice rang out from the crowd, and I loved it, only to see that it was none other than Harvey, who had treated me the other day. To the puzzled eyes of the crowd, Harvey slowly stepped out from behind the crowd. I only heard Harvey say, "The love of males for females is not superficial for the sake of having children. I like Bai Turnip, even if she can't have children." At this time I was simply shocked. The orc world's emotions are so straightforward. No way of expression is really rough.